Lebanon, from the crest of Armana, the heights of Sinir, the summit of Hermon, from the lion's den and the leopard-haunted hills. You've stolen my heart, my sister, my bride, with one glance of your eyes, one jewel of your necklace. Like a lily among the thorns, is my darling among the daughters. Like a lily among the thorns, my darling among the others. Don't go away now. TERUAH wants to arise. Come with me from the Lebanon, from the crest of Armana, the heights of Sinir, the summits of Hermon, from the lion's den and the leopard-haunted hills. You've stolen my heart, my sister, my bride, with one glance of your eyes, one jewel of your necklace.
All right, so I'm checking to see if I got all the things that I need to do out of the way. I think I do. Hey. Hello. My name's Alan Aguirre. You are watching the Exodus and Gathering Monday night field manual devotional. Is that the proper title? Is that the right thing? Are we at the right place? At the right time? Okay. Hey, before I forget, because I will forget, I was sent a message that some guy named Larry is watching. I don't know who you are, Larry, but I heard it's your birthday. I wish I could push something that was like, maybe I need to get the Beatles, little soundbite of the Beatles singing happy birthday. If you're out there, Larry, watching, somebody just busted on you and said that it's your birthday. They actually told me how much you are today. I don't know if I should probably share that information. Heck, I don't even know who you are. Larry who? My cousin Larry and my other cousin Larry. Apparently there's Larry out there who's watching, who's it's his birthday. Ooh, I almost said how old. And so be sure to, if you know Larry, punch him in the arm for me, because I'm not there to do so. And if you're watching, give Larry a birthday wave or something like that. No? Okay. Hey, Alan Aguirre here. What are we doing? Yes. Here's our social media. Social media is very important. People think it's the devil. Everything's the devil. But social media is it's an amazing tool. Yes, it is. Did you know that Capernaum, where Jesus lived, the reason why he picked to live there was because it was a social hub? Kind of like a social network. Oh, yeah. All right. Hey, this is our store where you can buy all your resources. See that calendar? If you don't have one, you need to go buy one. And if you do have one, go buy one for a friend of yours. This is like the greatest resource. You know, we're the only ministry that has an actual hands-on, tangible, pro-feast, pro-Torah calendar planner. Most ministries just do like wall calendars, and sometimes they're just PDFs. That's how we started. But no, we have an actual tangible calendar that you can, oh man, it is a great resource. You know, we wanted, anyway, I'm not going to say anything. I was just about to bust on someone for being ignorant, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be a nice guy tonight. Hey, if you don't have a calendar, get a calendar. Maybe we should do like a buy two, get one free type of thing. My point is you need to have one. And if you do already have one, I know you have a friend, a daughter, a loved one, a neighbor that could benefit from this. It's got a reading plan. It's got the weekly Torah reading plan. Oh man, so much. If you have a calendar, leave a comment telling people how amazing it is. Okay? And you can get it there at planetbluemedia.com. No, it's not flatearthbluemedia.com. Oh, did I just say that? I'm sorry. I apologize. Or do I? Okay, email. So if you want to send an email because you're a pro flat earth and I just like kind of busted on you, send it to feedback and attention Alyssa. I don't know what's in me. I'm a little snarky. Snarky.
You're jazzed up tonight, man.
What's that?
Said you're jazzed up tonight.
I know. I don't know why. But I'm glad I'm all jazzed up. Think of the alternative. Oh my gosh, that's the snarky cam. If you didn't know, that's the snarky cam. And I'm excited. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're here. Leave us an email. If you need information, send it there. If you actually have something that you need to interact with, like Q&A or whatever, send it to feedback because Alyssa helps me run that one. And sometimes I can't. You don't want to know. Hey, Tuesday morning. What are you doing? How you doing Tuesday morning? What are you doing on Tuesday morning? You know what I'm doing on Tuesday morning and every Tuesday for the last 4+ years? We do a thing called the Chameleon Church Show. It's turned into be like an organic prophetic type of, hey, do you want healing type of thingamajigger? Anyway, apparently it's a pretty spiritual place to be on a Tuesday morning while you're drinking your I don't know what it is that you're drinking on a Tuesday morning, but come and join us. We don't know what we're going to talk about. Chris Rosentrader, our co-host, who's new to all this, is bringing questions for us to answer. And a lot of you identified with that last Tuesday because you're new to all this too. So it's awesome that we have someone who's like, well, let me put it this way. Since Tuesday, I think Lenny, you can attest to this because you were in on some of these messages. Chris has had his mind blown at least twice since Tuesday, and I had nothing to do with it. See, when I found out that my dad was reading a book about Jesus coming back, and he was coming back as a Jewish rabbi, and that helped him not only actually come to Jesus, but come to like the understanding of Torah and all that, I just went like this. I was hands off. I just backed away. He got to that point with the Holy Spirit without my help. And the last thing I wanted to do was get in there and muddle things up. So I just left it alone and watched as the Holy Spirit started moving in my mom and my dad's life. It was amazing to watch. I've shared about it before. It was like a mind blower. I mean, mind blowing. This is about what? 4 or 5 years? Right after Ariel was born, but it was like 4 or 5 years before he passed. And it's like, anyway, it's amazing. Well, in the same way, like Chris, if he asks me a question, I'll answer it. But other than that, I'm not like hammering him on the phone. Hey man, what'd you eat today? Did you eat anything unclean? Hey man, are you counting the omer? No man, just leave it alone. Tuesday mornings, 8:45 a.m. Central, the Chameleon Church Show. Join us. In the meantime, if you're new, I'm sorry. Ask anybody here. I'm a little bit riled up. I don't know why I'm riled up. I didn't drink any coffee or anything. Well, coffee doesn't do that to me anyway. I can drink a bunch of coffee and go to bed. I don't know. I'm just excited to be here. You know what? I did read something that's in this week's devotional, which I'm going to explain. Anyway, this is what you're watching, the Exodus in the Gathering devotional. All right, here we go. So this is week 26, which means, that means I actually have to start. I have to go finish the next one. Oh, I need to go do that. Yes. And it's the Feast of Trumpets because it's Yom Teruah, because if we had started this, or when we did this back in the beginning of the year in 2021, which would have been somewhere in March or April, we would be about to enter into the fall feasts. But because this version of what we're doing because of the what's it called? Shabbat Night Live on Rude Awakening came out. And then in November, we decided, you know what? And we talked about it for a few weeks. What are we going to do? Because a whole bunch of y'all came because of that. And so in November, we decided, you know what? Let's just, I'm going to buy myself a year. And let's start this over in November for all of you all that are new because of the Rude Awakening show that we did in, when was that, September or whatever? Anyway, I'm not complaining. I'm just letting you know why we're talking about the Feast of Trumpets when it's like more than 4 months away. And we're looking at about 5 weeks ahead of us, right? We're in about 5 weeks. We'll all be together. Those of us that, if you know, you know. A bunch of us will be getting together in about 5 weeks for what? The Chameleon Church Shavuot Pentecost Holy Spirit Conference. That's right. Hey, Alyssa, could you post a link to the Shavuot page on Chameleon Church? Because even though the room registration ended on Friday, we're extending the conference registration through, what did I say? Was it Sunday, the 22nd of May? Where's my calendar? Chun, chun, chun. Okay, we're extending the conference registration through, Sunday, May 22nd. And then that's it. Because we have to call it at some point because we have to plan for the food for the people, for all y'all. So, even though the room registration has ended, you can still come to the conference. Go ahead and get a hold of the hotel and say, hey, and get a room. Just do it. You know, I mean, you're not going to get it at the sweet rate we had it offered to you until last Friday. If you snooze, you lose. They're buckaroo. So, hey, Shavuot conference coming up in 5 weeks. Can you believe it? Can you believe that a whole bunch of us are going to be together in the same room? Man, oh man. So you think I'm a wild and a crazy guy now and on Shabbat Night Live? Ask Alyssa, ask Lenny, ask these people that actually know me. How much richer the experience is when we're in the flesh. See, look at Alyssa grabs her face.
Is that what you're doing? Are you just warming them up?
That's what I'm doing.
Just work your way up the next 4 weeks until.
Oh man. I'm live, dude. I'm a nice guy. Aren't I a nice guy, Alyssa? Don't ask Jason. Jason will tell you that I tried killing him on a cliff with Nephilim to catch him at the bottom of the cliff. Jason's just full of it, man. Don't listen to him. Lenny. Okay, Lenny's known me. Lenny married my wife and I back in 1890. When was that, Lenny? Lenny, I'm an okay guy, right?
Yes, you are. What else can I say?
He almost said that with a straight
gosh. Don't get me.
How many years have we known each other?
Coffee.
Yikes.
Well, we don't want to scare any of you new people that are coming to the conference that are, that don't actually physically know me. I used to sing in a punk rock band. I was a singer for the majority of my life. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. Lenny, did you want to share something? Let's not do that. I'm the guy with the earrings. No. Don't worry. I won't bite. I might upset your family. Oh, so check this out. They're not here tonight, but so I'll share. Somebody that knows me through my music is in Utah. So we went fishing over the weekend, and he brought his wife and his son. And I was talking to him, and we're hanging out at the lake. So anyway, 15-year-old, almost 16-year-old kid. That's a great opportunity for me to I call it ministry. Most people call it harassment. You're picking on the kid. No, I'm not. So I started asking them what I would normally ask a 15 or 16-year-old, and that's, do you know what you want to do? Right? I mean, if you don't know what you want to do by now or by then, that's kind of scary because, most people's careers take off in their 20s. That's because they were doing something about it in their teenage years. Anyway, he doesn't know what he wants to do. He doesn't know what he wants to be. He has no plans whatsoever. He likes video games. That'll trigger me. Just tell me that you're a gamer. That'll trigger me. So anyway, then the kid said, well, I want to be a chef. I'm like, well, there you go. Awesome. That's a great thing. Do you know what culinary school you want to go? No. But at least you cook. No. You're not cooking now? You don't cook? No. You don't cook, but you want to be a chef. Anyway, you can imagine where I took that. And then I said, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna reel it in. I'm gonna reel it in and be nice to these people, these poor people that drove over an hour to come hang out with me, and here I am berating their almost 16-year-old child. I go, that's cool. That's all right. But at least you know Jesus. And he goes, no, I don't. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, there's no proof in my life that a Jesus even exists. And I'm like, oh. This was news to mom and dad. And this isn't the first time I've done that to a family where I'm interacting with your child and I bring up Jesus and come to find out that the child actually has absolutely no interest in Jesus or doesn't know who Jesus is and doesn't want to know who Jesus is. And the parents have been thinking, little Tommy and little Susie, that made it a little difficult. But hey, so I took it from that angle. Now I'm just going to witness to you about Jesus and why Jesus does exist and why you should know him. I'm not gonna say anything more, but you get the idea, right? No? Tell you what, come to the conference. We'll have some late night chats in the lounge by the fire, and we'll talk about why, if you're a Christian, your kid should know about Jesus and how that's absolutely 1,000 freaking % on you, mom and dad. You. I remember telling quick little testimony. We had just moved to Dallas, Texas. So it's 19. My kids are like 4, 6, and 8. And we were hanging out at my in-laws, and we went over to their neighbor's house. I don't know why. And the dad said something rude about he had like a 14-year-old daughter there, and she said, "Yes, sir," to me, and I go, "Oh, you don't have to say that. I'm from LA. We don't do that." And she looked at her dad like in fear, and I'm like, "Oh no." And the dad said, "Yeah, I'm like, I'm not trying to cause problems and all that. And this and that." So I was talking to the dad a little bit more because he was obviously a jerk towards his daughter. And he goes, "I don't trust her as far as I can throw her." I go, "Well, that doesn't say much about you. Now, does that? You don't trust your daughter. She's 14 years old. That's 100% on you." And he goes, "Yeah, you'll see." I go, "Yeah, we will see. I'm going to make sure that when my kids are 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, that I can trust them because I've instilled principles, godliness in their lives, on and on and on and on and on." So even when they were that young, I was talking like that because having your kid turn 18 years old and telling you, "Screw you and your God, Dad," that's a failure, man. That's an 18 plus year failure on my behalf. And that's just not going to settle well with me. I don't have room for that type of 18 to 20 year gaps in my life. No. So anyway, unfortunately, I brought up Jesus, right? Think, gee, what a concept. Alan Aguirre brought up Jesus in a conversation. That's rare. Come on. So I brought up Jesus in a conversation with a 15-year-old kid who then went on to tell me how they did not know Jesus. Didn't believe in a Jesus. Historically, spiritually, nada. And that there was nothing in their life to prove to him that a Jesus actually existed. And he said this in front of mom and dad, which isn't I don't have a problem with that. But then when you realize that mom and dad were a little surprised or taken back by that. You sure you still want to come to the conference? Okay. Father, have your way in Jesus' name, amen. All right, we are in week 26. We're talking tonight about the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah. Let's just have a nice little time here, right? No? I didn't make any slides because. Leviticus 23. "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the people of Israel, saying, in the 7th month," not the 8th, Jeroboam, or those that are deciding to go with the winter or fall solstice. What was that? Equinox or whatever was that last fall? Alyssa? With some people actually observing on the 8th month, like Jeroboam? Because the solstice, right?
Yeah, well, there were a couple of different groups. There was one group that was one observance that had the whole year shifted a month. And I think there were some that only did the 8th month different. I don't know. But it was based on equinoxes and all that.
Right. So, can't do that. "In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall observe a day of solemn rest, a memorial proclaimed with blasts of trumpets." There's your key. There's your clue. "A holy convocation, a high Sabbath. You shall not do any ordinary work, and you shall present a food offering to the Lord." And I've shared this before, in my research, when it came to writing this book, I was amazed at the Judeo-Christian, evangelical, Protestant thumbprint in my research, when it came to like Passover, resurrection, right? And then maybe Pentecost. And then it just disappears, right? Then it just completely disappears. There's no evangelical Protestant fingerprint anywhere regarding the fall feast. It was kind of weird in my research. But in that research, what was more disturbing was how the sages, the Jewish sages and the rabbis and the rabbinical order, all that stuff, how they were perplexed that on the first day of the 7th month, they were supposed to have a memorial proclaimed with blasts of trumpets. And they were like, what do we do? A memorial for what? A memorial of what? And I was like, wow, that is like the weirdest thing. That's like the weirdest thing. So, because you have to remember, Jews don't do Yom Teruah. They talk about the Feast of Trumpets, the day, right? They talk about that. But they don't actually do that. They do what? Rosh Hashanah. They do a civil new year with honey and apples. There might be a shofar in the picture, but it's not, they don't actually deal with the first day of the 7th month as a memorial, but they instead are looking, they're not looking back. That's what a memorial does. They're looking forward with a new year. It's really kind of, it's awesome because, see, I've been saying this for decades before I got anywhere near writing a feast book. And that's in the same way the enemy has been ransacking Christianity for 2,000 years. He's been ransacking Judaism for a lot longer. It's the first of the 3 fall feasts, the Feast of Trumpets, Yom TERUAH. Yom TERUAH, or TERUAH, frozen. I'm thinking of that English thing. What is that? Yom TERUAH. Anyway, Yom TERUAH is the only feast day that falls on a Rosh Chodesh, a new moon. In chapter 2 of the Feast Unlocked, we discuss Israel's knowledge of the lunar conjunction to determine when their Rosh Chodesh feasting should begin, and that 3 days for feasting were set aside for the new moon observance. We also determined that it wasn't until the visible crescent was seen that Rosh Chodesh was officially started, as we looked at the following. David said to Jonathan, "Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit at table with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field till the 3rd day at evening." Then Jonathan said to him, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and you shall be missed, because your seat will be empty. On the 3rd day, ... because you can read about it. And when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food. But on the 2nd day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty." 1 Samuel 20, there's your verses. They knew when the new moon was coming, but set aside 3 days for feasting. On seeing the visible crescent, the elders would declare it in order to alert the people that Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month, had commenced. Accordingly, since Yom TERUAH falls on a Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, in quotes, is observed as a 2-day holiday to accommodate the determination of Rosh Chodesh. The Torah, on the other hand, ordains only a 1-day observance for Yom TERUAH, on the 1st of the month, a day of remembrance. TERUAH literally means shout or to make a loud noise. So Yom TERUAH would translate to day of making a loud noise, or the more suitable, day of shouting. On the 1st day of the 7th month of Ethanim, on Rosh Chodesh, we are to keep a solemn high Shabbat. You shall observe a day of solemn rest, a holy convocation. It is also a memorial day. Memorial here in the Hebrew is Strong's number H2146, Zikron. Memorial, reminder, remembrance. We're also to announce this memorial day of shouting with shofar blasts, a memorial proclaimed with blast of trumpets. And because it is a high Sabbath, you shall not do any ordinary work. And you shall present a food offering to Adonai. Essentially, the instruction found in Leviticus 23 through 25 is telling us that on this specific Rosh Chodesh, it is to be a high Shabbat of remembrance, a reminder marked or announced with shouts and blasts of the shofar along with a food offering. This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord. Throughout your generations, as a statute forever, you shall keep it as a feast. A high Shabbat of remembrance, a solemn reminder announced with blast of shofars. A reminder of what, you might ask? It's a reminder of the blowing of a shofar that occurred 4 months ago at Mount Sinai. On the morning of the 3rd day, there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain and a very loud trumpet shofar blast, so that all the people in the camp trembled. Then Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they took their stand at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because Adonai had descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. And as the sound of the trumpet, shofar, grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder. Yom TERUAH is God instructing us to remember how, when, where, and why he approached us with his life-giving precepts. Remember? In chapter 4 of the Feast Unlocked, we discuss the reason behind bringing Israel out from under the burden of Egypt, the reasons for Israel's deliverance. We discuss how Passover's deliverance and salvation from physical slavery and death and the resulting exodus from Egypt occurred with one single goal in mind, an encounter 50 days later with the living God, Shavuot. We discuss how Shavuot prophetically speaks of the marriage between man and God and how Israel never consummated the marriage vows at Sinai, and how Jesus is man's final hope for that consummation. The consummation of, I will take Mary, you, the bride, to be my people, my wife, and I, the bridegroom, will be your God, our husband. He wants us to remember his shofar blast of Exodus 6:7. I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God. And you shall know that I am Adonai your God, who has brought you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And you wonder why Israel would not understand or remember why it's a memorial? Well, why would you want to remember this cosmic screw up on your behalf as a nation, as a people group? They balked at relationship at Mount Sinai. Not something they want to remember. So let's just change it. He wants us to remember that this is the gospel unto salvation, his master plan, that he loves us, desires us, and is our bridegroom. This is what we're supposed to be remembering on Yom Teruah, this holy Rosh Chodesh, this solemn day of remembrance, marked with the blast of shofars, this high Shabbat, not a civil New Year's celebration. Blessed are the people who know the festal shout, TERUAH, who walk, O Lord, in the light of your face. That really struck me today. Walking in the light of your face. And there's a few more passages that talk about walking in the light of his face and having his face shine upon you. Isn't that something else? I mean, we know what Deuteronomy 6 the Shema talks about, right? And then the blessing, the Aaronic blessing, may his face shine upon you and give you peace. It all ties in with this light of your face. It's observing Yom Teruah correctly has something to do with us walking in the light of his face. Obedience. Yom Teruah is better known by its popular and erroneous Babylonian-inspired name, Rosh Hashanah, and its meaning of head of the year, New Year. In reality, Yom Teruah is a Rosh Chodesh, a high Shabbat of solemn rest, a holy convocation of remembrance when no ordinary work is done, a reminder announced with shouts and blasts of the shofar, and a food offering presented to Adonai. On this day of remembrance, we are to remember the shofar blast of Mount Sinai and the covenant of Torah that took place at Shavuot. Yom Teruah is not a Rosh Hashanah New Year's, head of the year, celebration that takes place 2 weeks before the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, described in Exodus 23:16 as the end of the year. We'll be right back. Well, well, well. Walking in the light of his face. Man.
Hey,
We can always count on Doug to break the ice. What's up, Dougie?
hey, man.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How do I
How's
look?
everybody?
How do I look?
Huh?
Do I look all right?
Looking good.
That's how I'm doing.
That's right. So here's an icebreaker. The first thought I got was we as people are really stupid,
Yeah.
and Father's patience is incredible and awesome. Thank God we're not God. It's like, hey, I don't want to remember that, so I have an idea. Let's do something else. Let's give it a different name. And we screwed up, so we'll just rename it, and that'll put a Band-Aid on it. And, God's not going to remember that because we gave it a different name.
Yeah. We're smarter than he is.
I mean, yeah, how foolish. Oh, my gosh.
we do it all the time. Christians do the same exact thing. I mean, they really
That's
do.
what I was thinking. Yeah, let's kill Jesus over and over again and call it Christ Mass. And, it's just, wow. I'm not going to dig a deeper hole for myself. It's just insane.
I know I'm smarter than the average bear, but I'm not smart enough to outsmart God. And it's like, how do you think you're going to be able to pull a fast one on him? You know what I mean? So since that's just never going to happen, I just want to submit. I just want to submit. I want to throw myself at the foot of the cross and just go, oh, Father, have mercy. And go from there, You guys I've shared the testimony with them before many times. I don't know if this group has heard it yet, but I had my garage in Dallas was like was real holy. There was like a portal in there, and it was the end of 2006. Anyway, after going through this like elaborate prayer of leaving everything at the foot of the cross, my intellect, my talents, my abilities, my bank account, my wife, my children, my goals, my aspirations, my life. I mean, the list goes on and on. See how easy that list came out of me? Yeah. Whoosh, right? And when I was done, I'm sitting there in the presence, basking in the afterglow of his presence. He goes, "You done?" Oh my gosh. I was so offended by it. I was like, what the hell? So I snarked right back. Yeah, I'm done. Like, what the hell? Talking to me like that. And he goes, good. Because all that stuff you just laid at the foot of my son's cross, it's not yours to lay down. You bring nothing to the table. And I was like, I'm the one that always brings something to the table. God just told me that all that stuff I just laid at the foot of his son's cross wasn't mine to lay down. It was his already. I bring nothing to the table. At that point, I was just like, God, I was on my face. Have mercy. That's all I've got. All I can do is beg and plead for mercy at that point. Changed my life. It that really quickened me. That was good for me. I bring nothing to the table in this relationship. I bring nothing to the table. So I better tread carefully. Not because he's an ogre. No. If you're not hearing this correctly, it's because you're in the flesh. If you're hearing this in the spirit, you're hearing what I'm saying. You gotta. The Holy Spirit's like a dove on your shoulder. You don't want to do anything stupid for it to fly off. You know, you know what I mean? Got to be careful. Yeah, I bring nothing to the table. And at that point, it's, oh God, have mercy. Father, have mercy. Mercy, 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 mercy. Right? Bing, ding, just. That's the fear of God. Anyway, that was a good thing. That was a good thing for me.
I think we all need that moment, man. I think it's great that you share that because we all need that moment. That's the beginning of wisdom, right?
I think so. If I bring nothing to the table, that means, right? He's sovereign. He's the sovereign. That, so go back to medieval days. Right? You got a king. He's a sovereign. He can kill you for whatever reason, even at a whim. And so that's why you're bowed before him. It's a sign of mercy and submission. He could just chop off your head right then and there if he wanted to. And you have no recourse. He's sovereign. You're the subject. It's awesome. The dynamic is amazing. And people don't want to be subjugated by the Holy Spirit. That's the problem. They don't want to be subjugated by the Holy Spirit. They don't want to surrender. They don't want to break themselves on the rock. They don't want to die to themselves daily. They don't want to throw themselves on the altar, which is their rightful temple service. No. They want their Jesus and they want their cake and eat it too. They want their Jesus and eat it too. They want to call the shots. They're the ones, they want this thing their way. And you're going to bend to my will. And you're going to, you're going to be the Jesus and the God that I want you to be, or you will not have my what? Oh man, I see it all the time. It's amazing, and I get to hear their reasoning why, whatever. It's mind blowing. I want to walk in the light of his face. I think it's worth it. I see value in that. What did it say about Jesus? Even though he was what he was, right? God in the flesh, he wasn't too mighty or haughty to consider it to be a humble servant. How's that verse go? It's not like he was above doing that. I want to follow after my rabbi. I want to be humble. And it's hard for an arrogant man like me to be humble. And so that I bring nothing to the table was really good for me. What does that verse say? Jesus didn't find it what? To take on... He
didn't find equality with God something to be grasped, but emptied himself.
To be made in the image of man, to be human. Right? Doesn't that tie in there somewhere? Isn't there a verse like that? There is. I know there is. I'm thankful that he did that. I'm really thankful that he humbled himself to be a human being and then take the cross on my behalf. I'm pretty grateful for that. Do you guys know the verse I'm talking about? I know the one that Jason read is similar or close to it.
Yeah, it's in Philippians. Let your attitude toward one another be governed by your being in union with the Messiah Yeshua. Though he was in the form of God, he did not regard equality with God as something to be possessed by force. On the contrary, he emptied himself in that he took the form of a slave by becoming like human beings are. And when he appeared as a human being, he humbled himself still more by becoming obedient even to death, death on a stake as a criminal. Therefore, God has raised him to the highest place and given him the name above every name, that in honor of the name given Yeshua, every knee will bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue will acknowledge that Yeshua, the Messiah, is Adonai, to the glory of the Father.
I have no problem with that. I submit to that wholeheartedly. I submit to that. It's amazing. Is that the one you read, Jason? That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah. I mean, do you understand what she just read? Do you understand what we're talking about? God wasn't so above whatever that he allowed that to not only be humbled to the point of becoming man, but then dying to the cross. Being allowed to be crucified as a curse, because there's that part too. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm from the entertainment industry of the world. When you're at a party, and I used to go to a lot of industry parties. That's what you do when you're in the industry. And you always know the ones that aren't really doing it, because they're the ones that are talking a lot about it. They're the ones that are talking the loudest and the most about all the stuff they got going on. Those are the guys that aren't actually really doing anything. Those that are actually really doing it are quietly sitting there enjoying the company and having a beer and talking to their friends or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They're not talking about. It's the same thing. I'm God. I know I'm God. No big deal. I can humble myself to be man and to be a man and be in the flesh, carnal, not in the sin, but to be a human being. Let me put it that way. That's what I mean. And then I'm going to let them do what they're going to have their way with me, because I have a plan. I'm going to let them have their way with me, because I'm going to die for all of you, because you're all screwed up and you need that. He's the guy in the corner with the most money and the biggest deal in Hollywood, quietly sipping on a drink, enjoying himself. And the little Muppets, one talent believers, are running around like little busybodies, talking about all the irons they have on the fire. Oh, yeah. And they're the one. And then when you see them 4 months later, 5 months later, hey, how'd that deal work out? Oh, it fell through. But, and then they were there about the new deal. This goes on for years and years and years and years. Lenny is the one that revealed to me in 1988, I'm going to say, that there's a bluff that looks over to the left, Hollywood, Cahuenga Pass, straight ahead to Universal City, Universal Studios, and to the right, the studio district of Burbank and blah, blah, blah. So there's this corner, this bluff, this strategic vantage point. North Hollywood, porn capital of the world, is over there. All of Hollywood and LA to your left. Universal and Burbank and the studios. And there's this entity that's perched on that ridge known as the Taskmaster. And I know it very, very, very intimately, very well. Remember that, Lenny? Tell me there's not a Taskmaster entity perched on the mountain of religion.
There's another verse that I think was along the same lines in Matthew 20:28. It says, even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many.
Yeah, ransom. I'm sorry. This is like a Tuesday. This is like a Chameleon Church show. We're talking about walking in the light of his light, walking in the light of his face, simply because it came out about blessed are those that do Yom Teruah, Psalms, those that walk in the light of his face. That's how I got there.
Nehemiah Gordon says, when it says that his face is to shine upon you in the light of his face, it's as if a husband with his eyes is looking into his bride with so much love that she responds back to him.
Damn. What's that song in the Grandmother's Spaceship with eyes like laser beams? Whoosh. Yeah. Talking about Jesus. Oh, man. Aren't there memes out there like, you want a man that looks at you like, and then it's like some like sports figure or some sort of, looking at some, yeah. Man, that's wild. That's a good one. Okay, I'm done talking. This is your turn. Hey,
It's Monday.
Allison.
Hi. I was just thinking about the different things you were saying, and I looked at Revelation 13:8 as well, when you're talking about the humility of God coming down in the form of a man, and it says he was slain from the foundation of the world. And that was something that I was thinking about this morning when I was attending to all my animals and everything. And I was just thinking, it wasn't like, oh, what are we going to do now? They rebelled against us. Here we wanted a family, and look what they've done. I mean, they knew before they actually formed the foundation of the world, they're going to mess up. Yep. And I was just picturing this conversation. There they are in eternity, and they're going, they're going to mess up. Yeah. What are we going to do? Well, I'll go down and I'll die for them. It was determined before man was formed, I'll rescue them. And what really resonated with me about that was also how, when you were talking at the beginning, and you were talking about how, and then you said, God is not an ogre. And at first, when you were talking, and we go through the account, and you look at, okay, well, clean yourself up, go to the base of the mountain, but don't let anyone touch the mountain. And then there's great, clouds, and there's thunder, and and he speaks through thunder, and you're thinking, and it's so powerful that it shakes. And you sit there and you think, well, in the flesh, I for a long time I thought, it's natural to think that the people would be scared of that. But you look at it and you go, what did he do all that time before that? He hovered over them and watched them. He sent Moses because he had heard their cries and he wanted to save them. He saved them. He kept them under like the mother hen hiding them, so they weren't overtaken by so many of the plagues that he put upon Egypt. He did all these things. He showed their might. He showed them, I have might. I have power over these false gods. I have power over Pharaoh. I have power over life itself. And I'm going to show you redemption. I'm going to even show you my power. I'm going to take you right to the cusp, the shore of the edge of your life. And I'm going to show you the might of my power as a pillar of smoke, as a pillar of fire. I'm going to then show you I have all power over everything, including creation. I'm going to lead you through dry land. I'm going to show you this, and on and on. I'm going to feed you with manna. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be merciful when you grumble. Then he says, now come to the foot of the mountain. And when he shows up in awe and power, after he's been a pillar of smoke and a pillar of fire, shadowing them by the day, keeping them warm by night, their response is, oh my goodness, I can't stand near him. He's too powerful. He scares me. And I'm thinking, actually, that doesn't make sense anymore, does it? Because you're going, it's like saying, here I've got a husband, and this man I'm going to be betrothed to has rescued me from this. He's protected me from the heat of the day. He's protected me from the cold of the evening. He's fed me even when there was nothing around to get the provision from. He's gone and done all these things. And now when he's shown his might and power to rescue me, he's shown how he's done all these things. And then when he shows his might and power and he stands there in his glory, I go, oh, no, thanks. You go speak to, it's like saying to him, you go speak to the pastor over there and he'll come tell me, and I'll just go, yeah, okay, yeah, no, I agree. Just give me the ring. It's fine. It's all good. And I thought, actually, that makes no sense. We loved his power and his awesomeness beforehand when he was rescuing us. We loved all these things over here. We loved him lavishing these things on us, but now he's going to show his might and his power and remind us of that. We're going to go, no, go speak to the pastor. He'll come tell us what the vows are and we'll just say yes. I'm like, and God didn't even say anything, but, they've spoken well. I'm thinking, he didn't even say, you're turning your face from me right now. I'm showing you me as much as I can physically show you. I thought, that even shows his mercy. I thought, and again, how arrogant am I to all this time going, well, hold on, how can he be upset with him even? Look at how the ground's shaking, it's thundering. I'm thinking, shouldn't they be sitting there going, you are amazing. You saved me through all these things and you're willing to show yourself. Yes, it's a frightful thing in the flesh, but you are awesome. And that's why I want to worship you. It switched it. It was like this whole, when you were talking earlier, I thought it just completely switched that paradigm for me and understanding that in that way.
He brought it up. He brings it up when it comes to the 12 spies. He's like, Caleb, he's going to make it in because he's got a heart. His heart. He's got a, there's something different about him. We have to be like Joshua and Caleb, right? They weren't freaking out about. They weren't the ones freaking out on when it came to Mount Sinai. They were ready. They were prepared. They were all about it. We have to have that same, exactly like you're saying, we have to have the same heart and mindset that Joshua and Caleb had when it comes to this relationship, when it comes to this covenant. And that's the difference between a traditional Western Romanized Christian that goes to, I talk about him. I don't know if I've talked to him a lot about him recently, but we call him Johnny. He goes to church. He puts a little bit in the basket. He might show up on a midday week meeting, but he's pretty much, I go to church on Sunday and I tithe, and that's about it. He's not leading his wife. He's not leading his children. He's not leading them in. I mean, he doesn't have any spirit. He's the blunt end of all the jokes in the office. He's constantly being passed over for promotions. He's just, he's just a guy. No power, no authority. There's nothing about him that you wouldn't want to be him. He's not popular. For so long, and I'm still convinced of it. Christianity is a failure-based mentality religion designed to attract losers, people that were not popular in school. They weren't getting how do you say it without sounding crass or crude? They weren't having sex in school. They weren't popular. They weren't going to the parties. Do you know what I'm saying? Here's why I bring up the sex part is because if you were not popular, you probably didn't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. That's what I mean. That's the nice PC way of saying it. If you were popular at school, let's say like the head cheerleader or the quarterback, you had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. That's what I mean. You've seen the movies. Don't look at me like I'm some weirdo. All right. So if you weren't popular in school, you didn't have a boyfriend, you didn't have a girlfriend, or you didn't have boyfriends and girlfriends, you didn't go to the right parties, you wore the wrong clothes, you weren't even on the map. That's who Christianity is focused for. That's who Christianity targets. Christianity targets those guys because they don't, right? Why? Because they were those guys. That's why they got into Christianity, and they don't know how to relate to the popular kid, the guy that did go to parties, that was popular, that had girlfriends and boyfriends, depending on when and where you went to school. You know what I'm saying? It's a failure-based mentality religion for losers, people that weren't movers and shakers. Because I wasn't a move. I mean, crap. How do I say this without sounding like a jerk? I did go to parties. I did have girlfriends. I was popular, blah, 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 blah. And then when I got saved, they had literally no idea what to do with me. They had no idea how to deal with me. I was like an alien, a demonic alien is how they treated me. They treated me like a demonic alien. They had no idea how to deal with me. Because they've never dealt with a guy like me before. They still don't know how to deal with me because they don't deal with guys like me. I've been around Christianity for 40 years, and they still have no idea how to deal with a guy like me because they're not guys like me, and very few guys like me come into faith. I know I sound like a total egotistical. I know what that makes me sound like. But you know what? You can go back and look. I literally was that guy. I'm not just making this up. It's not like I rewrote my past. Lenny, you remember? So, unfortunately, those same people that weren't popular in school, didn't have boyfriends and girlfriends, whatever, if they're not movers and shakers in the world, they're very rarely movers and shakers in the spirit. They don't have the spiritual authority. They're the majority. They're one talent believers. They're not necessarily and so like Israel, they will walk in fear and doubt and unbelief because they don't have high self-esteem. They don't have they don't have confidence, and they're you know what I'm saying? That's why they're those people in the world. Well, they come into Christianity in the same way, and they're counting on it, but that's also how they can control those people, leadership. And then they're going to shape and mold them into their own likeness to be yes men. And it just propagates over and over and over and over and over. Then so you have these incredibly dysfunctional churches that have absolutely no power or authority in the real world. And then a guy like me walks in and upsets the cart really, 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 really bad, because it's like a guy like me can't be a real Christian because he's wearing earrings. He's got a checkered past. He has said and he still says and does things that are very questionable. If you personally know me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Lenny.
I remember it was like not a big paradigm shift, because a lot of the people in our fellowship back then were from the Jesus movement. So they were already conditioned. They didn't have that tradition behind them. Move forward 40 years. They're back down to the old religious system again. And the interesting thing about those early days is we go, you know what? We can't judge anybody. We need to love everybody until Yeshua and the Holy Spirit gets a hold of one another. And I remember when you walked in the door. I remember when Bob Jones prophesied. I remember all those things. It was interesting. I feel bad for the people because there's something that stuck with us that came alive during that Jesus movement that is totally absent from the body of Messiah today.
I know. Yeah. So as we were trying to find a church to go to, we had a little blonde baby. My wife and I would walk into churches and we looked like we were walking into a club on Hollywood Boulevard at 1:00 in the morning. Full face makeup, blue black hair, black nail polish. I mean, it was post-punk. It was, and we figured if they could handle us, they'd be able to handle us.
But I think that's part of it as well. I mean, I don't know if I agree entirely. I think that Father values people that necessarily, I don't disagree with you, but I don't necessarily. I think that Father values the people that have set themselves apart and is in the world but not of the world.
I agree. 100%. I agree with you 100%.
And I'm sure you do. But I also completely agree with you that because of that, and the people that have grown up in the faith, in Christianity, under that umbrella, they can't relate to people that have had very different lives. And I've seen that, I've experienced that. And while they say their arms are open,
right,
they have no concept of what it looks like. And I've been in the rooms with people that love God, are genuine, but they'll sit there and they'll talk about things. And I've been in tears and said, please don't put that out there. Please don't put that on the internet for people to hear and do the rest, and I've been in tears when I've listened to it, and I've literally all but begged them and said, please don't put it out there, because they had somebody who's very genuine, loves the Lord, hears from the Lord, speaking about mountaintops and valleys. And the valleys were things that I wouldn't even break my stride for. These are like, your fingernails not right. You get your clippers, you clip it off, or, you do it as I go, okay, I've done that and I'll walk on. These are not big things at all.
Yeah.
And when I raised it and I tried to raise it to say, hey, this is not going to be received well. You're putting it out there for the world. The world is hurting. The world is going through things that you couldn't imagine. I was chastised, and I had every single person there come against me. And I'm sitting there going, no, you don't understand. I am for that person. We need more people that are wholly set apart for the Lord. However, the world's going to come in, and they even said down to their own mouth, they said, well, we've had people come in and we go, well, and we can see something's wrong. We say, well, we encourage them to talk to us, but they refuse to talk to us. I'm saying that's because they can see that you cannot comprehend, you cannot stand with them and next to them in a way, because they'll walk in them. And I said, the people who have gone through this will look and go, they got no idea. They cannot relate to me. I cannot relate to them. I said, so of course they're not going to speak to you because they know that it's unsafe in that context.
Right.
And they looked at me like I had two heads and I was just blaspheming and things like that. And I'm thinking, but, and I've sat next to, I've had the privilege of being there, being alongside of people on a, medium-term time frame that have been in some of the most horrific circumstances in life. And I've had them sit there and they say, I've had one person that had a lifestyle that was just tragic for many, 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 many years. And the first time I met them, they looked at me and they said something and they said, oh, yes, but you're a Christian. And I didn't plan it. I didn't do anything. I laughed. And they looked at me and they went, I can talk to you, can't I? And I said, yeah, you can. And I've had people that are in their 60s and going into 70, and they've just said, I've never told anyone else that ever in my life, not even my husband. And that's not because of me. That's because of the fact that God has brought me through, like Mary Magdalene, like all these other people he picked because they didn't have this little umbrella they walked around in. They'd weathered the storms, they'd gone through crap, and they've been able to go, that's my God. He's going to get the gurney out. He's going to clean it off me. I'm not going to look pretty when I turn up. Maybe I still stink a bit, but that's my God, and I'm going to follow him because I know he saved me and I know what he saved me from. And it's like, they say, those who are forgiven much, love much. And I think sometimes, and it's the difficulty because that, and you can perceive, because there's that thing, it's not like the familiar spirit thing, but you can sit there and you go, yeah, I can't talk to that person about that. And that's unfortunately the situation, I think, with the world. They look at the Christians and they go, yeah, I'm not going in there. I'm not talking to that person. And I think that's what you're saying really that's how I receive it and how I hear it. And it's hard for the world to do that. I can't hear you.
Alan, we can't
Sorry.
your audio.
I was saying, I appreciate what you're saying, Alison. I do appreciate it. So let me do a little damage control. I start off by saying we have to be like Joshua and Caleb, and they weren't like the majority, obviously. They were a little bit different, right? God even said that Caleb had a different spirit in him. He wasn't like the other guys, right? And these guys were like, oh, right? And if you've heard my testimony before, I've mentioned many times that the guys that I go to for counsel and advice and spiritual wisdom don't have an understanding of the world I come from. I call them Docker-wearing mofos. You've heard me say that. These are really normal conservative guys that are that are true to everything I just said about they weren't popular, they didn't have girlfriends, they didn't go to the right parties, blah, 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 blah. Those are the guys that I've set up around me that I can go to when God tells me something crazy and I should be, God would never talk. Yeah. And I go to them and they should be going, oh my gosh, but I go to them for the advice and counsel. I don't go to guys with tattoos and piercings, and I know those guys too. Robert Goodwin. Robert Goodwin's one of the greatest guys, godly men I know out there. Pierced and tattooed and blah, 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 blah. Been a punk rocker in the real world and blah, 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 blah. I've got normal guys set up that I can go to for counsel and wisdom because I don't judge. I'm not basing this on who they are in the flesh, who they were in the flesh. No. I base this on who they are in the spirit. See? And so I have these normal, look at Jason. Jason and I are absolutely, completely opposites. Aren't we, Jason? We're polar opposites. But I will listen to you speak and pray because you're a godly man. Lenny, you don't have a single tattoo on your body, do you? See? See what I'm saying? So if you're thinking, if you were hearing me in the flesh, then you heard who knows what. But if you're hearing what I'm saying, like Allison, like you're saying, thank you very much. The point is we have to be like Joshua and Caleb, and they weren't like the normal guys. The normal guys were doing the exact opposite of what they should have been doing. They were going with the flow. They were going with the majority. They were going with what everybody else was, They weren't separating themselves and going, no, right? Because they didn't have that spirit in them. It doesn't matter what you look like. Doesn't matter what your past was like. I was just sharing a little bit about my life, and they didn't know what to do with me. They still don't know what to do with me, and that's just the truth. Hell, I wish I was normal. It would make it be a lot easier, wouldn't it? I bought some camo over the weekend so I can go turkey hunting. That's new. Look at Alyssa's face.
If we don't get turkey at the Shavuot gathering, I'm going to be upset.
I'm scaring my wife. She's like, I didn't marry that. This is what I married. So we want to be like, we have to be like Joshua and Caleb. The things that we're trying to expand and teach you and equip you with will make you more like Joshua and Caleb, walking in the light of his face. Not going with the majority. Being set apart, not because of your hair or earrings or attitude or the kind of music you listen to. No, but because you're spiritually, because you're godly, because you're holy. Because you're holy. Like that, WHOLLY, holy, holy, holy. That full Zandura was that mortal.
I just got through reading that about Joshua and Caleb, and they weren't afraid of what was coming or what they were facing. And that has a lot to do with Yom Teruah, because like when you brought it up about the blowing of, they needed to remember what happened at Shavuot, the blowing of the trumpets, because he was willing at that time to bring a bride to himself, to call his people a kingdom of priests, and they wouldn't have anything of it. Well, it's interesting. There's a reason why he has the feast the way they do, because he knew the Gentiles had to come in. He knew everything else has to come in. But on that day, and Jesus was incredibly silent concerning the fall feasts. He said a few things, but the interesting thing is someday on that day in the future, when he made reference that no man knows the day or the hour, when that trumpet is blown, he is going to be on the planet for his bride. That's going to start his march and the judgment of the nations till he arrives in Jerusalem. And that's that part of looking for his, the Jews don't want to see that. They want to eat apples. They don't want to face what it really means to go into the land. And yet, if we know those things, that keeps us holy. And every man that hath this hope in him purifies himself even as he is pure. That, just bringing it back to Yom Teruah.
Good stuff.
Hi, Alan.
Hello.
Of course, a wedding that didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
It didn't happen. A runaway bride showed up or ran off. So they say.
Even with the shotgun, that didn't help, huh?
Right. I mean, he blasts that shofar and scares the heck out of them, and choo, she takes off,
Oh my gosh.
And now we have our bridegroom come back for us on that day, possibly
Oh,
the day
man.
that all the trumpets blow and the king is proclaimed. Woo! Anyway, yeah, runaway bride can't run that far.
Yeah. Yeah. But okay. So, like Lenny was saying, and like we just said, but because of that, it made way for us. It made way for Gentiles, right? Because the marriage wasn't consummated. It was so that's why. So right, instead of marrying the father, now they're marrying the son. See how that? And then we have that whole, because he died and rose from the dead, he can marry the tribe that he divorced, the daughter that he divorced. Ephraim, the 10, the Gentiles. He can marry them. He can marry Gentiles now because even though he divorced them, because he died and rose again. It's like, man. Crazy stuff. Cool. Anything else? Anybody else?
Well,
I see you, Jason.
yeah, I know. You like my shirt? My granddaughter picked it out for me.
Oh,
I call it the Nephilim or Totes Adorbs.
you've got a little demon on your chest.
Exactly. The Nephilim or Totes Adorbs.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, sorry.
Oh my gosh.
So
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Just thinking about this passage, I think what Lenny brought up was great. I think what Allison had to say was spot on. It still gets me about that whole thing where on Shavuot, the day, and the shofar blast, even those who weren't, I guess, Hebrew speakers understood the voice. They could hear him. Thus, pointing to the Shavuot after Jesus ascended. I think the primary thing, and the reason that we don't have the fall feasts that have been hijacked is because there was no primary fulfillment in that day that they wrote about. They had the Passover, they had Pentecost, and I think the importance of them having their hands off of them is shown that we have to bring it up, so we point to him. We have to be versed in what it's all about, why these things are observed, why the Feast of Trumpets matters versus a civil New Year, why we're screaming towards the Day of Atonement, why all of these things, where in his fulfillment, I believe it strips out everything that stands in the way of understanding how he is shown, how he expressed all of the spring feasts, and it takes away your Easter, your Lent, all of that stuff that's been stacked up pulled in from the gods of the nations, their worship, to muddy the water and to make it very unclear of who he is and why he did these things and why these observances are so important that we have been commanded to observe them. So let's just mix in a bunch of other things that are not only not commanded, but abhorrent to his truth.
Yeah. A memorial with shofars, I really believe, and I explained this in the feast book, I really believe the whole reason for delivering Israel from Egypt was to make this covenant with them at Sinai. The writer of the Hebrews talks about that. Mount Sinai, Mount Zion. I think they kind of allude to the same thing. There's this covenant that God has. You got to remember, he's trying to restore man to his rightful place. And that's what Shavuot was for. And Israel said, no thanks. Which is why the reason why I think Shavuot is important is because Pentecost is it happened on the same day, for one. Two, we're counting up to it. Man, there's this massive anticipation counting up to it every year, right? And then three, the covenant that's made with 2 loaves of bread that you bring from your house and you present it to the priest, which is standing in proxy for Adonai, who's going to wave that. And then there's going to be this little parlay, verbal, a covenant making declaration. And then a free will offering. There's a lot there, man. There's a lot there going on. Without Torah, Christianity doesn't have any of these type of things. They don't have any of these type of covenant-making declarations, things that you do as a model for what's supposed to be happening in the spiritual realm on certain days and times that God's actually in control of. And, man. We're Chameleon Church, we are anticipants to what the Holy Spirit is going to do at Shavuot. We're looking forward to it. All right, we're counting it down. 5 weeks, people. Allison, did you have something?
Yes, just with Jason, I just had this epiphany when Jason was speaking. That's why I said that was very powerful. Because it just dawned on me when he was speaking, and I think he was just talking about, he said the reason that Christianity doesn't keep the feast is because they still refuse, and I'm thinking, as he was talking, the way I condensed it down was because they still refuse that marriage covenant, which is his Torah. Yeah. And then it was, for me, that was an epiphany. I'm thinking, that makes sense. Why they'll sit there and go, oh yes, we can look at Passover and we can say, oh, this is Passover. We can talk about Passover because we accept the blood, but we're not going to talk about Feast of Trumpets and things because we reject it. And it was an absolute epiphany for me at that moment. And said, it was like the people. Christianity is like the people, the majority who said, you speak to him and we'll listen to you, but then they go and make the golden calf. I thought, oh my goodness, that is still what we're doing. And that's why there's always, he talks about the remnant, the Joshua and the Caleb, and they're sitting there going, and and he's going, yes, only they're going to go in, and the new people that they raise up in their likeness are going to come into my covenant, going to come into the promised land, and they're going to fight. But they're going to be willing to fight because they know me as God in all of my aspects. Oh, absolutely powerful. I'm thinking everyone else might have had that epiphany already, but I just did.
Well, here's another piece of that epiphany. What does a bride do at the altar after making the vows to her husband, to her bride, the bridegroom, what does she do? Cynthia?
She lifts her veil.
Yes! The veil is freaking removed. Oh man, I just censored myself really good there. The veil is removed, 2 Corinthians 3. The veil is removed from our heart. The veil is removed for our husbandmen. Is that a word, husbandman? Man, I just got that one while you were talking, Allison, just then. Yeah, the veil is removed.
That is powerful, isn't it? But no wonder the enemy has to keep this from the people, because as soon as they get it, they're not only walking in covenant, the veil is entirely removed, and he's done. There's not just there wouldn't be just a remnant, there would be the army of God living in power on the earth like they should be after Pentecost.
But it's deeper, even deeper still, because it's a covenant of love. Now there's this union, and the enemy hates that, right? Your question is, why would the enemy? Because the enemy, he hates love. Mm-hmm. He's a murderer and a liar. So that love, he wants to keep us from understanding that love covenant, right? Christians don't believe they have to obey and keep covenant and keep the Torah and keep the commandments because God's not our lover. I released a single in 2001. The song was called Light Machine. And one of the lines is, "Lover, I died that you would know." And one of the biggest radio markets in the United States, we needed this radio station to play it because it's like the electoral vote, right? Some states have more electoral votes than others. Well, the same thing with radio. This radio station had more electoral votes, I'll use that, than other stations, right? And that's important because when it comes to tracking, is it in the top 20? Is it in the top 10? Is it in the top 5? That's where those station votes come in. Well, one of the biggest radio stations for that in Christian rock is in Dallas, and the DJ had a personal beef with me, and he would not play it because I called Jesus lover, and it was perverted. And I'm like, what kind of a sick freaking mind are you dealing with, buddy? The Bible calls Jesus lover. Yeah, but there's a sexual innuendo there. I'm like, what? See, so Christianity, now take that understanding into what we're talking about. Christianity doesn't have this love language, right? John Mark McMillan says, sloppy wet kiss, and mainstream Christianity lost their mind with that lyric. Did they not? Yes. Because the Song of Solomon is perverted. It's talking about his left hand holds me and his right hand embraces me. The Hebrew there's this major sexual thing going on there. We don't, as Western Gentile Christians, we don't understand this love thing, this marriage thing, this taking off the veil love language thing with God, because you go to remember, Alyssa, remember when we were at that guy's house and we were watching a movie and he had that angel, the people that made The Chosen, before they made that show, they had a box. It was like a TiVo box, but it was a sensor box. VidAngel, that's the company, right? And he was able to set the settings. And so remember how he said it? 100% violence. And when it came to sensuality, 0. I'm like, yeah, because violence is better than sex. But that's the mentality of the church. Sex is bad. Violence is good. And even if you don't think violence is good in a movie, but most do, they'd rather watch a shoot 'em up bang bang than anything that's intimate, because that's perverted and bad. because it's Puritanism, right? Well, in the same mentality, we have the same mentality when it comes to our love language or the understanding of love, covenant love with God, in my opinion. And we just exposed that between the three of us, talking about the epiphany you got with what Jason said about the bride, and then the love, and then the veil. They don't understand that stuff. So they don't know how to have an intimate relationship with God through the power of the Holy Spirit. It messes with them. They don't know how, because right, to be intimate, you have to be what? Vulnerable and transparent. And if you're not vulnerable and transparent, and all these people have daddy and mommy issues, so they don't know how to have a transparent, vulnerable, intimate relationship with God. Which is why a 15-year-old kid could grow up without ever knowing about Jesus with his Christian parents. I hope you're not listening, dude. I'm not trying to screw with you. I'm just... You know what I mean? Some of the most
it's
sexually
a real
repressed
lie.
people... I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a real lie that
Yeah.
that we have, we in the United States, the Western world has completely taken in hook, line, and sinker.
Yep.
The whole idea that sex is bad, but violence is not. It's evident everywhere. And as you say, even in our Christian circles, yes.
Yeah.
But it's a lie that Satan is just chuckling at.
Yeah. I'm reading some of the
That's
comments.
why
They're
sexual
awesome.
perversion is, that's why America is the center of all sexual perversion.
I know,
because
right?
of that.
And the most
Yeah.
sexually repressed people I know are youth pastors.
Yeah.
Go figure. And and they're supposed to be helping parents raise the most vulnerable time of sexuality in people's lives, 12 through 18. It's just the enemy is just having a freaking field day. I'm reading some of the comments. There's some great pow, epiphany, our Monday night brain explosion. It's like this, the brain emoji going on. Oh man, this is awesome. But yeah, it's God created sex. Think about that. Did you know that? Whatever it is you experience with sex, God made it. He knows it. He knows about it. He knows it better than you do. He made it. It's not weird. It's not bad. It's not... The Song of Solomon, man, it's... He wants intimacy. Intimacy means vulnerable transparency. Most people can't do that. They have a hard time doing that with humans. And because they have a hard time doing it with humans, there's no way they can do it with an invisible God. There's just no way. And so they balk. So you get guys like me, or you get guys like the Chameleon Church thing that we do, right? Whether it's me or Alyssa or whoever. We talk to people about things they don't want to talk about when it comes to their faith. And it makes them incredibly uncomfortable. And we're like, who do you think you're hiding from? You don't know that God knows the most intimate parts of you? He wants to. There's a lyric that I wrote that was somebody reminded me of it. And it was a lyric that I wrote a gazillion years ago. Who you are when you're sitting by yourself is the who you need to crucify, and not somebody's else. Because that's who you are at 2:00 in the morning, looking in the bathroom mirror. That's who Jesus wants to have covenant relationship with. That incredibly vulnerable. Walls are down, defense mechanisms are down. It's 2-3 o'clock in the morning and you're looking at yourself in the mirror. That's who Jesus died for. That's who Jesus wants to make covenant with. That's who Jesus wants to walk with. That's who Jesus loves. That's who Jesus died for. Not the you think you are 9 to 5 in front of your friends and family and coworkers and all that BS. Come to the Shavuot conference. We'll do this in real life, in real time. And okay, for those of you that can't come, like Allison, I know you can't come. I don't know why, but Just jump on a freaking plane. Come on out. Anyway, we don't know if we're going to live stream it yet. We're still trying to figure that out. We don't want to commit to live streaming and then sell it because we're going to have to pay for it. So we should, anyway, in case we don't have a good signal and then, right. So we might just record it and then offer it afterward on a DVD and not have to worry about the live stream issue. So we're trying to figure that out. But anyway, hey, I'm going to go. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much for making this. Well, I don't want to start crying.
Unlike movements of the wind, come Patmos.